Wait, Sam Cedars debating Yaron Brook? Is this happening right now?
In a free market, not in the world in which we live now, where everybody hides behind the government, of the insurance company that insured that building, because they've got a lot of claims that they're going to have to pay now, and they're going to take a big hit. They, in a free market, they would have sent an inspector. Now, in the world we live in today, they don't, because they rely on the government inspector, which probably was not a good idea.
No,
because
the government inspector made it quite clear that there were problems there. The private inspector, I'm sorry,
20 years ago when the building was built with a basis.
I'm sorry. The private inspectors also, the engineering company that was in there, the private owners of that building made the decision not to fix it. Now, were there stricter government regulations?
Then why are we worried about it? Then they made a decision and they suffered the consequences.
Because there's 100
people who made a decision, who made a bad decision, and suffer the consequences of it. I'm not justifying the building collapsing. I'm saying that people make decisions. If I make a decision to walk into the street without looking, should the driver be limited in his capacity to?
He's literally writing off the irresponsibility of the business owner that led to the death of over 100 people. It's just being like, dude, they just like make mistakes, whatever, free choice. I'm sorry, buddy. You don't get to just make mistakes. When I live in the building, you're choosing not to get repairs on, okay? Sorry, buddy. I don't give a fuck. If I live in a building and there are repairs that need to be done, and that's your decision and you choose no, okay, then you're responsible for the fucking check you're going to get the next time I see you in a hallway, okay? I'm sorry, buddy. It's personal responsibility stops meaning shit.
Dry because I made a stupid decision. The point is that there are, what you want is for the people who make the decision to suffer, to benefit from the consequence of their actions.
We need to see the full thing. Well, if you're a libertarian, why would you ever debate Sam Cedar? That seems like a really stupid idea.
Can you hear me?
There he is. Yes.
Okay.
So, Yaron,
yes.
tell us.
It's Yaron.
Thank you so much for. What's that?
It's Yaron.
Yaron. I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wait, he didn't correct me
at pronunciation. Yaron, tell us the name of your show where people can check out your program.
It's pretty simple. Yaron Brook Show. Yaron is Y-A-R-O-N.
Okay.
Did he get his like lower lip stung by a bee? I don't remember him having that lisp or that pronunciation when I talked to him.
And so we should just say to start.
He always had it? Oh, I didn't notice it before. Maybe just because I was debating him. Oh. He has a speech impediment? No, I'm just because I don't remember it from when I talked to him. Okay, there's nothing wrong with having a speech impediment, okay? Impediment. I have a speech impediment. I mess up words all the time. Shut up.
This off. We were connected by Ben Burgess.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the wake of the Steven Crowder, I believe, debacle, or depending on your perspective, wonderful phenomena. You reached out to Ben and said, I would like to debate Sam, and I was down. And so here we are. Let me, well, I'm not going to make you comment on the Steven Crowder thing, because
let's move on from Steven Crowder. Yeah.
So, all right. So, okay. So with this said, what shall we discuss libertarianism?
Well, I mean, I'll just clarify. I'm not exactly a libertarian, and I know this is probably in the weeds for you guys.
He's a super libertarian.
I like to differentiate myself from them. I'm not an anarchist. I'm not a complete subjectivist, as many libertarians are. But sure, we can discuss free markets, and we can discuss capitalism. We could debate them, however you want to present it.
All right. Well, I mean, let's start with free markets, because
Sure.
I am of the opinion that there's really no such thing as a free market,
Mm-hmm.
and that markets only really can exist, particularly in this day and age, but in general, with governments, essentially, that governments create and structure markets, and that there really isn't a free market. It's really just a question of how the market is structured in such a way and who it benefits.
Well, what's the question is what is freedom? That is, what does it mean to say there's a free market? Freedom is the absence of coercion. It's the absence of force. It's the absence of an authority that says this is how things have to be. And if you don't abide by the rules, we'd put you in jail or we shoot you or whatever. Free market is a system in which the governments exist, but the role of government is to protect rights, to protect individual rights. It's to leave you alone, to make...
I should have given this guy the coconut analogy. I should have. I didn't want to because he comes off more professional, but I totally should have. I don't know why I didn't. It's an undefeatable argument. It's basically like it's like my fucking Exodia, okay? That I can pull out in any argument with a libertarian or anybody else who's advocating for a free market, okay? The fact of the matter is, there is no such thing as an economic decision made free of coercion when scarcity is on the table. If you need money to live, then you are being pressured then into getting work. And if there's a pressure, if there's an incentive, if you're being pushed into it, if there's a timeline, a due date for you working, for your employment, then corporations have the ability to force upon you terms and conditions which you might otherwise not be willing to accept. You don't have the luxury of choosing from an infinite range of potential options.
Make choices based on your values, based on your pursuits, based on your choices. To leave you alone to...
Wait, hold on. 1 second. It wasn't some business owner that refused to repair the building. The building was a condo, and the individual owners voted not to pay for repairs. Wait, is that true? There wasn't a manager? It was literally just a bunch of individual condo owners? I'd never even heard that. That doesn't mean it's a cooperative. Jesus. The cost estimate from the Morabito Consultants engineering firm in 2018 meant owners of the Champlain Tower South were facing payments of anywhere from $80,000 for a one-bedroom unit to $330,000 or so for a penthouse to be paid all at once or in installments. One resident whose apartment was spared had just taken out a loan to cover his $80,000 bill. The itemized bill sent to the condo board in April to owners of the building's 136 units showed that much of the planned work was in the pool area and the facade. Installing new pavers and waterproofing the pool deck would cost $1.8 million, with an additional $1 million going to structural repairs and planter landscaping, according to a condo board email. A line item of miscellaneous repairs that included work on the garage was estimated to cost $280,000. Total costs assessed, including many items that appeared to be for aesthetic purpose, $15 million. Wait, if only $1 million is going towards, quote, structural repairs, how the fuck does this bill balloon up to $15 million? Like, if your condominium unit is so busted that you need immediate structural repairs, why wouldn't that be a separate thing you pursue immediately? Why would you lump that in with a bunch of aesthetic... Like, imagine if somebody walked up to you and they were like, yeah, dude, your house needs... Like, your landlord walks up and they're like, yeah, your house needs repairs. You'll need to cover it. Okay, it's $200 for the repairs and it'll be $4,000 for the beautification and the fresh coat of paint on your house. Like, what? Engineers and construction experts said the Morabito documents that just focused on the structural work made clear there were several major repairs that need to be done as soon as possible. Other than some roof repairs, that work had not yet begun. What happened here? The cost estimate emailed by Morabito Consultants to Surfside officials was among a series of documents released as rescue efforts continued at the site of the collapsed building. More than 150 people remain accounted for. So, it was an HOA, right? So there was a central organization that tallied up the costs and then said that everyone would have to pay a portion of them to get the renovations done? Many people are saying this, Lance. But we should agree it's more complicated than X person let everyone die for profit. Yeah, if that's the case, then yeah, it is more complicated than that. I still think that, like, government regulations should address this. Yes, and they have a legal responsibility to get that work done. It seems to me like the responsibility lies with the packaging of all these costs together. Again, the condo board lumped all these costs together. They should have said, hey, structural repairs are happening right now. Or yeah, it could be condemned. It could be illegal to live there. Yeah. I haven't looked into it, Rear Admiral Kai. That's really strange. This channel has a bunch of great videos. building integrity.
Hey guys, Josh Porter again with Building Integrity. I wanted to thank you guys for all of the positive comments.
Shut up, we're learning
for
today, guys.
The subscriptions to our channel, and really big thanks to a bunch of you who sent us links to the documents and the plans and the permits and stuff that we needed. I haven't had a chance to really go through the permits necessarily over the course of the history of the building, but I definitely have been going through some of the recent documents. First thing I wanted to talk about in this video is a correction from the last video. Now that I have the plans, the original 1979 construction drawings for the building, and I've received the plans that the engineer who was overseeing the restoration, which I'll get into in 2021, the plans that they prepared in 2020. After I reviewed all that, I kind of took a double look, because all those plans indicate that the building actually does have a plate slab construction, like I said before, but that it uses a double mat of conventional reinforcement rebar instead of post-tension cables. So even though the original the original photos I looked at indicated that there would be post-tension cables, I went back and looked at those photos, and I found an additional photo, which I will share with you guys real quick here. This is another photo I found, and in this photo you can actually see where the bottom reinforcement has been ripped out of the slab, if you can see my cursor. But in this particular photo, you can actually see that a lot of the rebar remained in this particular part of the building, as opposed to the other photos that I had available to me before. And in this case, you can see where that rebar is sticking out like at an angle. And you can see that over here, these two pieces of rebar are very angled. Now, if this was a post-tension slab and the cables had ripped out of the bottom of the slab, which would have generally looked the same, the damage, but if these were cable sleeves, they would be hanging straight down due to gravity. But because they're bent and holding their position at a sideways angle, this photo seems to reinforce the 1979 construction drawings and the 2020 engineering work that was done by the other engineering firm.
There you go.
So I just wanted to get that correction out of the way. It doesn't really change any of the observations I made in the previous video about...
I have so much respect for people who are hyper-fixated on very niche topics, and they're like, yeah, you know, there's been some contention whether or not these were suspension cables or rebar, and I've received a photo that, if you see right here, you take a look at the pixels, I feel like the angle at which these bars are bending might indicate... So yeah, these plans are accurate, and I just wanted to clear that up for people. I respect the fuck out of that. I do.
The observed damage to the...
It just feels like people care about truth so rarely these days. It's really awesome. I don't know. It's just, I don't know.
Facade of the building, the photo analysis that we did of the Google photos, and generally the condition of the poor condition of the building in 2021 when those photos were taken by the Google car. All right, so as I discussed in the last video, I said I was going to do like a plan and permit review. I didn't get to review the permits, but I did review the plans and I did review some of the documents, which we're going to review together. But before we jump into those, I just wanted to quickly go through the chronology of those documents that I've looked at so far. In 2018, and by the way, there's no doxing going on or any of this. This is all public information that the town of Surfside themselves have put out there for the public, for the consumption of the public. So you guys can all go find this data yourselves. You can find out the name of the engineering firm. So I'm not placing any blame or anything. I'm just using the names that are appropriate given who prepared which report. So in 2018, the association hired Morobito Consultants to conduct their 40-year recertification study. And they produced a structural survey report, which we'll look at together a little bit. And they also produced forms that they had to fill out for the town of Surfside in 2018 as well. And we'll take a quick look at those as well. Then in 2020, Morobito Consultants was retained by the association to essentially bid out the restoration of the building. Now, this is not like getting your kitchen remodeled or your driveway redone. In Florida in 2020, if you were an engineering firm and you were hired to bid out and specify and design a restoration job for a building, there's no way you're going to get that job done by a contractor in 2020. Just the workload is too pushed back. Things are too busy to do a traditional conventional restoration project. So what they would have done was they would have designed it in 2020 and bid it out. And then the work would have began in 2021, which is what looks like happened. In 2021, the restoration work began, but it began with the roof, and I don't really know why at this time, why the restoration work started with the roof. But while the roof repair, and we don't know exactly what was going on with the roof, only that repairs were being done. But while those repairs were in progress, that was when the building had collapsed. And the only comment I'll really make about starting with the roof is that this is normally the opposite procedure for restoring a building. I'll tell you why.
Yeah, why would you start repairs on the roof? Dude. We've got, like, some missing shingles, and also there are severe elements of structural damage to the foundations of the building. All right, so we're gonna retile these roofs first, and then... What? Why?
Because if you have an old roof, and the roof isn't really leaking or anything, you don't want to replace the roof with a brand new membrane, brand new surface, and then put a bunch of rigging equipment on the roof in order to rig the building. So what you're going to do, typically, is you are going to... You're going to go ahead and just throw some plywood on the roof in order to put your rigging equipment on there. You're going to structurally restore the whole building, and then you would do the roof second after you do the restoration. So I'm not really sure why they started with the roof. There must have been some sort of specific reason, but at this point, it would just be speculation for me to try to speculate on that. Okay, so let's go in and look at some of the PDF documents.
So what's interesting to me is the way that the housing association sold this. So we already have evidence of a lot of incompetence or a lot of really like fucked priorities on the part of the housing board. So first, packaging aesthetic repairs with structural repairs. Second, starting with the roof. How exactly did they sell these repairs to the people living in these condos? Because I would bet you anything they massively downplayed the structural damage. They're like, yeah, dude, we want to do like some big renovations. There's like some little structural damage but we want like a new pool and like a new roof and everything and like that. See, this is what I mean about the necessity for government regulation. Here's what should have happened, okay? A government inspection should have been done on this building, and the inspector should have said, holy shit, this is not a livable building. You all need to get the fuck out of here right now. We are immediately, this building is condemned until you guys put up the funds for this to be repaired, okay? This is not an aesthetic thing. This is not a roof repair thing. This is a life or death. Yeah, so government regulation has a place in this, and I really wonder what the priorities of the housing board were.
We've got here. All right, so going back to the PT comment that this building is not a post-tension building, as far as we can tell now that we have more data and more information. And by the way, that's good news because that means the building that is remaining, the portion of the building that's still standing, is actually a bit more structurally sound than I originally thought it was. So that's good news.
The remnant.
This is the 1979 construction drawing, one of them, and this is the typical floor framing plan, okay? And in this plan, you can see none of this needs to necessarily make sense to you, but these little rectangles here, these are columns, okay? And these notations, like where it says 16, number 5 is the size of the rebar, so this is obviously not post-tension cable, it's talking about a conventional rebar. Here it talks about that you're to locate 14 number 4 rebars in this area, 12 number 4 rebars over here. So this is, I just wanted to show you this to show you that the 1979 plans don't mention and don't talk about post-tension cables, they just show conventional reinforcement. If you look at the construction drawings put together by Morobito, this is like their typical, this is put together in 2021, it looks like, finally dated in 2021. This is part of the permit set that was in progress. And you can see that all the details, I mean, again, you don't necessarily need to know how to read these and understand them, but again, it shows all conventional reinforcement. These little dots that you see here, that's basically just conventional rebar. That's how you would show conventional rebar. And then the solid line above it is a piece of rebar going the opposite direction from the little dot. The little dot's kind of coming in and out of the screen.
Yeah, I took 2 engineering classes, not engineering, 2 architecture classes back in high school. And they were so much fun. You had to like draw out the plans and like measure the thickness of walls and stuff and build. And we did like a little project where we built it with like a, little wood and like made a mock-up of the house and everything. Really nice.
And then the line above it is going parallel to the screen. So it's showing that this is just existing reinforcement mat. One of the things I do want to comment on, because if you remember from my first video, and I repeated it in the second video, I said, look for columns. Columns are an issue. I did think it was interesting. This detail allowed the contractor to go ahead and excavate. You can visibly see this is like a sample excavation area. It allows the contractor to excavate into what we call the core of the column. The core of the column is contained within the rebar mat, okay? And that's very odd and unconventional to allow that. But at this point, we don't know that the contractor was actually doing any work to columns. So I can't say that they were doing this and that's what caused the building collapse. I'm not making that assertion at all. I'm just simply saying that this is a very interesting and odd detail to me. In our details, we do not allow anybody to go into the core of the concrete column without getting our permission on every single location and having the appropriate shoring plans put in place and stuff like that. So the engineering firm Morobito Consultants put out a statement on their website, and I'm just going to kind of go over some of the highlighted points here. And they state, which I've already said, in 2018, Champlain Towers South Condominium Association wanted to do their 40-year recertification of the condo building as required by the Miami-Dade County and the town of Surfside.
Is a 40-year recertification like an ordinary length of time for that? Like, is that considered to be like a standard? Is it normally less or more? Yes, okay, it's standard. Okay, just wondering. I don't know.
Their report detailed, so they're saying in this is their statement that they press released just in today, it looks like. Let's see, it says, our report detailed significant cracks and breaks in the concrete, which required repairs to ensure the safety of the residents and the public. So they're talking about their 2018 report, okay? The association engaged their firm again in 2020, so that's how we knew that they were hired. And then at the time of the building collapse, roof repairs were underway, so we kind of talked about that. That was a little odd that they're doing the roof first and not last, but again, they may have reasons for that. But they're stating that concrete restoration had not begun, so that's why I didn't want you to get too hung up on this column detail that I thought was a little funny and odd because they're claiming that none of that work had started anyway. So that's not that big of a deal, or may not be that big of a deal. Although I did highlight this little note, which I thought was interesting. It says we do not provide construction-related services such as building repair and restoration contracting. So they are not the contractor that actually does the jackhammering and the concrete mixing and stuff like that. And that's just like our firm, Consult Engineering. We would only provide the consulting services, the oversight services. But this statement's a little bit of a CYA, if you will, because they're kind of trying to deflect a responsibility.
Yeah, they're distancing themselves from the... So they were willing to do concrete restoration and roof repairs, but they weren't willing to do building repair or restoration contracting. So does that mean... So does that mean, does that mean that the condominium building owners hadn't even begun to contract somebody out for the real, like, repairs? Like, they contracted Morbido Consultants to do some aesthetic and, like, basic repair, but they hadn't even... Did they even reach out to another group? Like, they didn't even begin on the real repairs. What the fuck? None of them took any of this seriously. They didn't take any of this shit seriously.
The reality is that the way the state of Florida looks at it and the Florida Board of Professional Engineers looks at it is that if you're the engineer of record and you're on site and you're overseeing the work, you carry a responsibility. Whether you're the contractor doing the actual physical work or if you're just the guy with the hard hat watching the work, if you're the engineering firm on site and you're the engineer of record, you're going to carry some sort of liability. So I just wanted to point that out to you. And I want to be very clear, I'm not placing any blame at this point on Morbido Consultants. We don't have enough information to know. And we also only have limited documents. We only have the reports they generated. We don't have the conversations that they had with the client. And you'll see why that's important later. We don't have letters that they've sent to the client. None of that stuff, as far as I know, has been subpoenaed by anybody. Not that it would become public record anyway. If it were, it would be part of some sort of a suit if it was. So this is their 2018 actual report that they did. Here is their discussion of the pool deck and entrance drive. They say that the failed waterproofing, they're talking about the waterproofing at the pool deck area. The failed waterproofing is causing major structural damage to the concrete structural slab below these areas. Failure to replace the waterproofing in the near future will cause the extent of the concrete deterioration to expand exponentially. That is true. That is a term that we use as well, that if untreated concrete damage, such as concrete cracking and concrete spalling, will expand exponentially. I mean, that is literally the term, the industry standard term that we use to warn people of the serious potential of not getting it fixed in a timely fashion. And remember, this report was generated and given to the client circa October 8th, 2018. They go on to state that abundant cracking and spalling of varying degrees was observed in the concrete columns, beams, and walls. Again, we're still talking in the parking garage level area. Several sizable spalls were noted in both the top side of the entrance drive ramp and underside of the pool entrance drive planter slabs, which included instances with exposed, deteriorating rebar.
Okay, so the major structural damage was caused by failed waterproofing that allowed water to seep into and start destroying the... Gotcha, Okara. Start destroying the rebar and the concrete foundations. See... It seems to me like as soon as this report was made, there should have been some system that alerted the government and like triggered a government inspection, you know? I don't think, if you're like a private inspector and you're like, yeah, this building's fucked, yo, like, I feel like there has to be some way, the government, there should be a follow-up government inspection on this. Yeah. Yeah, the pool was on top of the foundation, which made it really easy for water to seep through and fuck up the concrete underlying the whole building. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are ways to handle that, but like... Also, was there never an inspection done in the past 40 years? Like, I understand you do your 40-year, like, full inspection, but was there nothing done in between then and now? The Surfside City Inspector gave conflicting info saying it was still in good shape. Ooh, this person's got some egg in their face now. Yikes! The chief building official of Surfside, Florida, has worked in at least 6 South Florida cities. The collapse of the 13-story condo prompted a review of his work in at least one city. Oh, yikes, this person is fucked. The building collapse that killed 2 men is back in the news after it emerged that a city inspector who conducted multiple site visits during the doomed demolition... Wait, doomed demolition? What were they demolishing? Oh, wait, that killed 2 men. Wait, this is a different thing. Okay, wait, this is a different thing. Hold on. Who told residents... Oh, the doomed demolition happened on Sunday? Well, no, here. Who told residents of Champlain Tower South that their building appeared to be sound nearly 3 years before its deadly collapse last week. His assurances to condo owners in November 2018 that their building appeared to be in very good shape despite a consulting engineer's concerns. Okay, so the consulting engineer was these guys. But then the city inspector, investigator, did say that it was in really good shape. Damn, so there even was a government inspector involved. Mr. Prieto has not spoken publicly since the Champlain Tower South failure and did not respond to repeated requests for comment or a note left on his door. Oh no! He's on vacation now, guy. He's in fucking Aruba. He's out. Goodbye. 25 years of experience. He's off in Cancun. Emails released by the city show that Mr. Prieto had been made aware of a critical engineering report that warned in 2018 of damage to the concrete and steel reinforcements in the building that in some places could threaten its structural integrity. When he attended a meeting of the Condo Association Board, he reassured residents that the tower appeared to be in good shape, according to minutes of the meeting. Wait! Did he actually inspect the building? Or did he just get brought on to a condo association meeting and he was like, yeah, dude, looks good. Yeah, dude, looks good. Did he get brought on to assuade the condo association board? Was he paid off? This is very shady. Later, when a resident of Champlain Tower South wrote to the city expressing concern that blasting and other activity during construction on a neighboring site raised, quote, concerns regarding the structure of our building, end quote, Mr. Prieto declined to send somebody out to check, according to emails released by the city. There is nothing for me to check, he replied in another email. The best course of action is to have someone monitor the fence, pool, and adjacent areas for damage or hire a consultant to monitor these areas as they are closest to the construction, Mr. Prieto wrote. No engineering records have emerged publicly that would suggest a connection between the construction and damage to Champlain Towers. Man, they're calling him out in this article, saying he had a bankruptcy in 2002. Whew. At one point, Mr. Prieto owned his own development company and was involved in several real estate development ventures. He had accumulated $1.7 million in debt. Oh my god, they're just dragging him now. A few years into his tenure in Miami Beach, his bosses complained he was frequently late, had missed more than 20 days of work one year. He's a city building inspector, Jesus. And could often not be located, according to emails in his personnel file. Wait, how did he not get fired? The record shows Mr. Prieto said he failed to call in sick on time because he had trouble with his sinuses. His bosses expressed concern that he frequently did not answer his phone when they were trying to reach him. He was suspended after twice calling in sick several hours after his shift had already begun. And then Surfside hired him? Why? What? For $110,000 a year? Failing his way to the top. Jesus. Some guys said they had no problem with Mr. Prieto's work. He scored good marks in a performance evaluation. He left Surfside in October and started working at CAP Government Incorporated, a company that provides building inspection services to municipalities. Through that company, he was served as interim building official in the city of Doral, which paid CAP $110 an hour for his services. So he quit government work to work for the private sector, but then the private sector contracted him out to the government and paid him 110. Dude, it's all a meme, dude. It's all a fucking meme. That paid CAP 110 hours for 110 per hour for his services, not him necessarily. It's all a meme. Yeah, no, he didn't see all of that. He probably made like half of that, but still, why is the government paying double or triple what it should be by contracting out the services of a mediocre private sector building inspector when there are probably good people they could never mind, just keep going. Okay. The collapse at the Kennel Club in 1997 was blamed in the demolition subtracting company, which had long records of safety violations and was accused of using dangerous techniques during the work. I am so fucking glad that I don't live in Florida, dude. Holy shit. The company, which was unlicensed, was fined $90,000 by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Unlicensed? You can never have too many building inspections, Mr. Haar said. Companies don't tend to inspect their projects very well. Except the company that inspected their own project was correct. They found evidence of structural damage. Okay. Well, we've gone down this rabbit hole. Let's finish that video. Isn't Florida a red state? Florida's problems go well beyond it being a red state.
And the reason why I highlight this is because, again, they're talking about the columns as one of the things, and I'll show you they have pictures in this report as well. And in the column, and I told you from day one, be looking for columns, because columns are the things that can fail catastrophically. They're the things that can create a domino effect.
Telling you,
and
day
the things that
one
ultimately can result in pancaking problems.
Look at the columns.
So they say, though some of this damage is minor, most of the concrete deterioration needs to be repaired in a timely fashion. This is a phrase that I have seen engineers use, and it bothers me, because if timely fashion can be interpreted completely different by completely different people. The engineer writing this report may have felt that timely fashion means, hey, you need to get on this in the next 6 months. Whereas the board member or the board of directors for the association reading this report may have taken timely fashion to mean that within the next 5 years we need to deal with it. So I'm not a fan of these types of terms. We try to use terms like immediately, or within 1 to 3 years, or within 5 years, depending on the severity of the issue. All cracking and spalling located in the parking garage shall be repaired in accordance with the recommendations of ICRI. ICRI is short for the International Concrete Repair Institute, which has recommendations and details for repairing concrete, reinforced concrete structures.
There sure are a lot of organizations in this country.
Repaired in accordance with the recommendations of ICRI, which I'm not a big fan of, because it assumes that the reader knows what the recommendations of ICRI are. Well, I'm telling you right now, if a board of directors knew what ICRI was and what those recommendations were, why would they need you? They would basically be engineers themselves. So it's sort of like, a weird catch-all phrase, but I think it's more appropriate to just go ahead and tell the client what it is that you're actually recommending be done. All right, so here's some pictures they took. I'm going to kind of zoom in on these.
Oh my God.
Here you can see a chunk of the corner of the concrete column inside the parking garage is missing.
Jesus.
We know it's in the parking garage because they say it, and we also know it because it's painted yellow, which is which is to help people driving in the parking garage to avoid it. Here we can see, I'm going to try to zoom in more so that hopefully the picture's a little better. Here we can see a pretty severe concrete spalling on the surface of the parking garage. I mean, that's extraordinarily, pretty severe. I mean, I rarely see this. I've seen this many times, but it's pretty rare to see it in a building that has let it get this bad, I should say. So that's an interesting observation. These are pretty severe concrete surface falls. Here's their comments on it. MC, which is short for Morabito Consultants. MC visual observations reveal that many of the previous garage concrete repairs are failing, resulting in additional concrete cracking, spalling, and leaching of calcium carbonate deposits. Calcium carbonate is essentially it's that white powdery substance that we call efflorescence, and it's just proof that water is passing through your structure. At the underside, and I can explain the chemistry behind that, but that's for another video. At the underside of the entrance pool deck where the slab had been epoxy injected, new cracks were radiating from the originally repaired cracks. Yeah, of course. So here's a couple things that they point out, which is very true and which is very problematic in our industry. So they say that they found previous concrete garage concrete repairs that were failing. Well, that's because a lot of engineers and contractors don't know what they're doing, and they do a half effort or completely incorrect job of repairing the structure. And then the problem this creates is that the damage is still occurring under their patches, but the building will generally look pretty good. And so this creates a problem for the client because they say, oh, well, we just paid to have the building restored. It looks good, but meanwhile, it's just pure cancer underneath all of these new patches and things. So MC observed that a lot of these patches, the concrete was failing underneath the patches.
Dude, it looks good like up on top, but then if you go beneath the first level, it's just all cringe down there. It's just pure fucking cringe.
Patches. The other thing too is I see epoxy injection of cracks totally abused in this industry, where they use it to try to stop water intrusion from the plaza deck down into the parking garage below. But epoxy injecting cracks is really like a structural repair, and it only has certain circumstances in which it's useful. When you see this phrase, new cracks were radiating from the originally repaired cracks, it's like, well, no duh. So what happens is the original cracks before they got epoxy injected were caused by thermal expansion and contraction. Well, then when you epoxy inject them, the concrete still needs to shrink and expand, but now you've sealed up that relief point that it had, and so what it will do is it will crack right next to it, and it will create a new relief point. So it looks like it's basically radiating from there. Here's some photos of the ceiling.
Gotcha.
Here is the epoxy injected cracks, and they left the ports in there, and they didn't clean, whoever that contractor was didn't clean it up and didn't finish it. This is work prior to 2018, because remember, this report was done in 2018, and it's commenting on that. Here you can see rust coming through cracks in the garage ceiling, and you can see these lines. These are essentially stalactites, okay, which is a formation of calcium carbonate coming down from the ceiling. So it takes a lot of water to create 6 inch.
Wasn't this a relatively like upscale condo unit? If it had we're not talking. This isn't like government housing or whatever. Like these are decent condos. Yeah, this is like luxury living. Can you imagine like living in a penthouse in a condominium and driving your like fucking Rolls Royce into the parking garage, and there are like little poop stalactites coming from the rotting ceiling?
1 inch long and 3 inch long and 2 inch long stalactites. You can also see the stalactites on these photos over here on the left. And then you can see more rusting and stuff on the ceiling of the parking garage. So that's essentially the bulk of
Why
the
is it
report.
poop?
There's
I
lots
don't
of
know. It's
commentary
poop.
in there. One of the things I didn't really find in the report was a statement stating the severity of the life safety concern. That's something that we always put in all of our reports. We put it in writing, but that's not to say that Morbido didn't come in after the fact and send some sort of letter or a certified letter or had a communication. Because sometimes engineers think, okay, well, we're about to restore the building anyway, so I'm not going to tell them it's like this giant life safety thing because we're going to get the building fixed next year anyway. And then the client never calls you back. The board of directors. And so then what you would need to do is you would need to send a certified letter saying, hey, listen, we failed to tell you in our report how serious this is. This is super serious. You need to take care of it right away. So Morbido may have done that, and they may have done their due diligence on that. But I can tell you from looking at their photos and reading the language in their report, this was a building that was severely damaged. Most buildings that I restore, and I think I've said this in the second video, don't look this bad when I finally get there. Sometimes they do, but rarely. Okay, and then here is the form that they had to fill out for the town of Surfside, and I just wanted to note 2 interesting things that the same engineer who did the other report filled out this form for the town, and under the concrete framing system, which is essentially talking about the main skeleton and main structural members of the building. It says general condition description, and this is the only description given. Overall, the concrete framing is in good condition with the aforementioned items requiring attention. He mentions various concrete spalls and stuff that need fixed. But this statement, overall concrete framing is in good condition, this is going to end up being problematic for them, given now that the building has collapsed 3 years later. But there is going to be a defensible argument from Morbido saying, well, yeah, it was in good condition in 2018, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was in good condition in 2021, right? So they're going to have some defense there.
It seems like they really didn't want to like commit to the disaster level approach on this. Like, how can you say like concrete framing is in good condition, but also in the previous segments, like you like the giant hole in like the pillar and everything? I don't know. It seems like they wanted to downplay it a little bit.
And then, of course, where it talks about rebar corrosion, check the appropriate line. And again, this is a preformed fill-out form, I'm assuming, from the town of Surfside. But they went ahead and checked significant, but patching will suffice. The problem I have with this isn't that it's technically incorrect. The problem I have with it is that the way the layperson reads this. If you're a board of directors member, okay, and you just got this report with all these pictures and all this stuff, and you didn't understand anything, and you don't understand what iCry means, and then you also get a copy of this report at the same time, and it says overall the concrete framing is in good condition, and patching will suffice, you are all of a sudden left with a very de-escalated or de-elevated level of concern. And you may be motivated to say, well, let's just kick this down the road another year or two until things become in bad condition, right? And then, of course, that creates the problems. In this report, though, they included some additional photos that they didn't include in the other one, so I thought it would be good for us to look at those. Here is some more concrete cracking in the ceiling of the parking garage underneath the building. And the rust that's coming through, the stalactites that are forming. I'm sorry, the resolution isn't very good. This is as good as I got. Here you've got another pretty severe crack with spalling. So that's kind of an interesting observation there. I'm not sure what we're seeing here. I think what we're seeing is that there's so much water coming through here that the water's spreading along the ceiling and then leaving efflorescence in different shapes and lines and stuff.
I can actually explain if you'll permit me. The overall frame was not necessarily in catastrophic danger at the time, but it doesn't take a large portion of the frame of the building for the building to fall. Thus, concrete framing can be seen to be in good condition, and then this happens. Well, would you agree that, because this guy seems to be making this case also, that the engineering company did not sufficiently indicate the danger all of this posed while filing their 2018 report?
But again, that's a lot of water coming through this plaza deck. Here's another typical, as they mentioned in the report, typical column damage at the ground floor, and you can see exposed rebar in there.
Is that white stuff the stuff that he was referring to that shows water is passing through the building? That he said the chemical reaction? Yeah, that's not like dust or powder or anything, right? That might be that. Yeah, the cum.
And you can see exposed rebar in there.
Calcium
here's some
carbonate.
better pictures of that surface falling in the parking garage. I mean, guys,
Jesus.
if you're a layperson and you look at that and you're like, that doesn't look good. You're right, it doesn't look good. That's really severe spalling. This is bad stuff right here. And you can see some more of it. And everywhere there's spalling, you can see the rebar is rusted in this slab.
Oh, you can see the rebar. I didn't even realize that. It's not just like potholes or anything. It's got it's eroded down to the metal.
Okay, so here is closer to the ground floor. They have these soffit boxes, which are essentially like wood framed because the architect in 1979 thought it would be a great idea. I can't give you any other explanation other than that. So there's this wood framed soffit box. It does not have a weep screed, so any water that soaks into the stucco and soaks into this box cannot weep out of the box. That water sits on top of the this concrete column right here, and will cause corrosion damage to the concrete column. You can see that damage kind of over here. Where we have the rust and we have this concrete that's spalling off of the slab edge there. And then you can see this line here, this little bump out line. This may just be unbonded stucco, but I suspect this is probably a large concrete spall at the top of this column. And again, remember what I talked about before, we need to be thinking in terms of columns, compression members, if we're talking a sudden collapse issue like
Is that water leaking into the paint? He's saying that the water can't like escape and it gets trapped here, so it starts eroding into the concrete and dripping past through the stucco.
this. Here we see other issues with paint, cracking, and you can see a paint blister here with water that's retained in it. So this building at some point may have been painted with a water impermeable paint, which I think is a terrible idea, but it was really popular in the 90s and early 2000s.
I'm guessing the reason why you don't want a water impermeable paint is because it means water can get trapped between the concrete and the paint, and rather than seeping out through the paint, it just like stays in there and continues to erode away at the concrete, right? So you want there to be some permeability. Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me.
But it retains water, so anytime there's a crack, water gets in, but then water can't get out. So that water's held against your concrete, just damaging it. Let's see. Okay, so here's looking up at one of the slabs. I think it might be a balcony slab. You can see that so much water is coming through this concrete that it's peeling the paint off the bottom. Okay, it's kind of a weird angle, but you're looking at the bottom side. And you can begin to see the rebar patterns in here. You can see these dark lines. This is rebar beginning to show through. Here you can see, which we couldn't see on the Google images, but you can see this line right here. This is like an entire like slab edge spall. And I think if I recall correctly, in their 2018 report, they said that like 25% of all the slab edges were spalled and in need of repair. So that's pretty significant. And this is an example of what that looks like when that concrete falls off. You can see all the bottom mat rebar towards the slab edge, and it's all rusted, it's all expanding, and it blew the concrete off. And I mean, this takes a while, and this takes a lot of ignoring it and putting your head in the sand in order for a building to get to this point. I'm just being honest with you. Here's a steel beam on the roof, and it's rusted. This is literally not a significant amount of rust that would concern me. So I'm not. It may look ugly, but steel. There's a lot of steel here, and it looks pretty good to me. So
yeah. Would rust even matter that much on an I-beam? Like, it's ugly, but I-beams are really, really thick, right? I don't know. It seems like rust would. I mean, maybe past a certain point, but I feel like for the most part, rust probably won't affect something that thick that much. As long as there aren't any holes. I just mean it would take an unbelievable amount of deterioration for it to start to affect, like, metal that thick, you know? Rebar isn't as thick, it's thinner, and it's, like, segmented, and, you know. So this is fine, I think. Just rust is ugly, you know?
And it looks pretty good to me, so I'm not going to comment much more on that. This is the roof. It looks like it was a ballasted type roof, possibly. It's a little hard to tell. But again, you know, the report of which this came from said that the roof was actually in really good condition, and the only concerns they had were some cracks at the parapets. So what I couldn't figure out is from 2018, with the roof being in relatively good condition, the maintenance department in the report was also cited as saying that there was no known roof leaks. It really just I find it odd that they would start their restoration project on the roof. I'm not sure. I think that's something we'll find out later, but I think it's something that will make sense later on, maybe when we get more information.
Okay, the video. Wow, we actually did it.
I've been getting a lot of information from a lot of you guys and a lot of people in my industry that have been watching my videos. One of the things I thought was really interesting was an article from the Associated Press that quoted a resident there who is an attorney, and this attorney was quoted in the article as saying, and I quote, "They were doing a new roof, and I think all day long, the building was pounding and pounding and pounding. They've been doing it for over a month," he said. So I think one of the things to think about is that if they were doing heavy jackhammering on the roof and it was vibrating the building, this absolutely could have opened up other issues and other problems lower down the building, especially when we consider a building that was in the level of disrepair that this building was in. Because remember before I told you how when the steel rusts, it begins to expand, and when it begins to expand, it pushes the concrete off and it blows it out. Yeah. Well, you got to imagine that before that concrete chunk blows off and falls off the building, that there is an internal pressure against that concrete. It only falls off once the pressure gets high enough and high enough. Well, you got to imagine that if the pressure is there, but now you add a vibrating factor. I have seen this on buildings that we've restored where you start jackhammering over here and the new concrete falls show up over here that weren't even there the day you started. So if they were jackhammering and doing a lot of vibration, and if that person is correct, that was quoted as saying that it had been going on for a month, pounding and pounding and pounding, as he said, then it would have been really, it would have been very important to continually inspect the lower floors to make sure that they weren't essentially crumbling apart as the building was being vibrated by this work. Well, in any case, that's all I've got for now. So I've got a lot.
Oh, I appreciated that video. I might watch more stuff from this guy in the future. Just pounding away. Inside the tumultuous years before the Florida condo collapse, I feel like... Oh, this is a big old article. I feel like we know what we need to know, right? This thing... It seems like this was a huge clusterfuck and that a lot of people hardcore dropped the ball.